Hello, hello. I almost said good morning because it is morning, but I never record these in the morning anymore. But it's morning, so good morning. But by the time this is out, it probably won't be morning for anyone. Anyway, we are in January 2026, January 5th to be specific, and I had a recommendation from a viewer that I think I am going to follow through on, but not today. Um, just a really good question that I think I'll probably either address next Monday or just on a separate video because I think it's a really good topic. But I wanted to take advantage of today's proximity to the new year and just talk about something topical. And I'm just pulling hair out of this sweater left and right. Jeez. Um, but just kind of spending some time on the internet a little bit the last week or so. Something that struck me that I think was useful, not necessarily instead of New Year's resolutions, but maybe in addition to, or as just a separate thought, is reflecting on things that made you happier or more joyful in the previous year, and maybe the counter to that being reflecting on things that do the opposite, and letting that kind of be something to teach you about yourself and maybe about the year to come. So it's an inadvertent way of setting goals of like, hey, if this thing made you unhappy, or if this thing added joy to your life, why don't we do more or less of these things? Um, and I liked the idea, and I had a couple things pop in my mind, and I didn't keep a list. I kind of want to do this off the cuff a little bit, so I probably do have more answers than I'm going to give in this video. But I liked the idea, and I wanted to share because there's going to be certain things that are true in my life that are true in other people's lives, and certain things aren't, and that's fine. But I wanted to just offer that as I reflect on 2025, which was a good year for me. And I think as it relates to a lot of the changes I made on this channel, I can start with that, which is one thing that brought me a lot of joy this year was actually moving offices. So if you've kept up on these, you know, well, I don't know to how much detail that would be known, but I have been running my business since August of 2020. And I have, for the first 5 years, been running it underneath, kind of like it's hard to explain quickly, under an umbrella or almost like a cooperative thing. But functionally, I was working at someone else's practice, but I was renting space from them. And then on top of that, I was being contracted to do other work and trainings for them. So still running my own business, but there was, if you're looking at it like hierarchical or structural, there was someone kind of above me in terms of I rented from them. And that's totally fine. But when you think of running your own space, I think everyone kind of has in their mind what their limit is, like what their goal is. And some people don't. It's like a sky's the limit. Whatever the next level up, I want to go there. So for me, I knew that eventually having a space that was entirely mine, where I didn't have to, ask anyone approval if I made any changes to the space. I didn't have to rely on someone else for certain things. This includes building policies and things like that. And so the natural next step was my own space. And that's what I did this past year. And I'm sitting in this room right now, which is mine. And I have an office right there. That's mine. An office right there. That's mine. A kitchen, a shared space, and a waiting room that are mine. And I rent them out to other therapists and still have room to add more, which is fun. And that's a big thing that brought me a lot of joy this year. It's brought a lot of stress, but as I made that decision and started making the transition, it tripled my expenses as a business, which is scary. And it was a big leap because you sign, a multi-year contract for people who don't do anything in commercial real estate. You sign multiple year usually. 3 to 5 years is very normal. It's crazy for someone to only sign a 1 year lease for corporate real estate. So, I say that for people who maybe rent apartments or do other things on a yearly. Like that's not the norm in this area of life. So you commit for a long period of time, and when you're dishing out that much money, which for me, you know, to be at this location, I spend more a month than I do on my home. So, it's a big, it's a big jump. So I say that because it's the opportunity for a lot of stress, plus furnishing it and everything, and cash flowing everything instead of putting it all on credit cards and debt. or getting loans was important to me. And so, that comes with a lot of stress, and all that is relevant because I remember looking at my wife and say, this is objectively more stress, but in terms of like personal stress that I feel, this is the least stress I've been in 2 years making this decision. And I think the reason for that was I was feeling closed in on at my previous location. Not like literally, but just this sense of like I've done a lot and I'm hitting my peak of potential where I was. And I was feeling that push down of like there's no more room to grow outside of the bubble. So, in this kind of box, and I'm bigger than the box now. So I need a bigger box to keep growing in. Almost like a plant that's growing in, it's got a little 3-inch pot and it's having a rough go, and you up it to a 5-inch pot. Now has all this room. It's similar to that. So you have to expand your pot, so to speak. So it was more of that feeling of I'm growing so well that I need more room to grow. And that's really cool. That's really cool. So I'm super excited in that moment, and that brought me a lot of joy this year. And another thing that brought me a lot of joy, and I'll throw peace in there as well, happiness, is I, in September, October, decided to be a little bit more intentional about my scripture and prayer life, something that's important to me regardless. But I spent some time finding a couple verses that are good for me to open the day up with, close my day with in the evening, and some stuff to read midday for a couple of reasons. One, to remind myself that matters more than whatever I'm doing in the day, that my faith matters more than work or relationships, and not that those things don't matter, but just a reminder, like, these are more important. And, separate conversation, there's nuances there of when it might not make sense to tap into those throughout a given week or month or year. But point being, it was establishing a better habit of scripture, prayer, and worship for me, and just doing that intentionally has pretty clear positive effect on me. One of the biggest ones, if I'm feeling stressed or just anxious or overwhelmed or depressed, playing worship music physically is really helpful. Just on my guitar and singing. Playing music in general has always been very therapeutic for me. It's probably the single biggest tool to relax me. Then mixing it with my faith has been more important. So much so that I'm still debating doing this, but buying a very cheap guitar and a stand, like combined $100, just a used one, very basic one, and putting it in the corner of this room, just as a decompression thing between sessions, or clients can use it too if they want. An electric specifically, so that the sound doesn't travel. Unplugged electric, that's why it wouldn't travel. So I've debated doing that as a way to just, have a breather throughout the day if I need one, and it's a really good recharge tool. And for anyone who hasn't gotten into music or guitar and you're thinking about it, what I just suggested getting from my office, I can do that for like $100. I think guitar is one of the cheapest instruments to get into in America by like a landslide. You can get a super cheap guitar on a lot of places, Facebook Marketplace, Guitar Center. Just get a used guitar, get the cheapest strings you can. It's so popular of an instrument that you can find countless YouTube videos on it. If you have a console, buying the game Rocksmith, that's like one of the, I think it won tons of awards for teaching how to play guitar. But it's just so accessible for anyone. In terms of, we're talking finances right now, like the ease of entry. So yeah, that brought me a lot of joy and happiness this year. Another thing for me is, I actually don't think I did a great job at this. I'm still learning how to do it with my new practice location, but just this is, everyone's gonna have heard this, I think, but the clearer your outline for your day and your life, the smoother it is. Less time in your brain trying to figure stuff out. Just do the thing. Write down what you need to do, and then just stick to the plan for the day. And if you're like, oh, if something comes up, it comes up. But then if you are getting through the day and you're like, maybe this wasn't the best way to spend your time, just as long as it's not bad, just stay the course. And then tomorrow adjust the plans. But don't be sitting there midday adjusting stuff. And for me, that's really helpful. Of like, yeah, that's fine. If you wake up late, just start where you're at. Just let your day reassess daily. Don't have major reassessment moments throughout the day. And really, I would say is push the reassessments out as far as you need to, really. Um, for me, that's been helpful. Just get through the day, map it out as best you can, and then get through. If you're like, oh shoot, I missed this thing, fix it tomorrow. Don't try to make up. For instance, today I woke up late, and I actually had a decent amount of stuff planned within the early morning. A lot of personal stuff. And traditionally, I'm someone that if my morning starts differently than I intended, it's hard for me to correct. Like I feel like I lost my like ignition button. And today was not like that. I had a couple minutes of that, but it was more like, you know what? I was traveling. I was driving for 10 hours yesterday. I drove the whole time. 10 hours. We came off vacation. I was up early, got home, unpacked, did a lot of housework, prepped for Monday, and slept in. And so I can choose to be like, oh, I missed my morning, or I can just be like, yep. My reassessment there is either one, I just needed to sleep, no reassessment needed, or two, did I go to bed a little bit later? And tonight, can I just, let's say, go to bed 30 or 60 minutes earlier? But I can already tell you today is going to be much less physically exhausting. It's going to be more mental. So, yeah, just move on. Got a little bit of later start. If some of that stuff fits in a later day, great. But right now I'm at work and I'm working, and that's just how it is, and that's okay. Especially if it's not a habit. You know, if this happens 3 days in a row, I'm gonna need a notable reset. Even 2 days in a row, I need to reflect. One day, whatever, make an adjustment, move on. Yeah. Another thing that brings me joy, and this is kind of both ends of the spectrum that I've noticed in 2025. Something that steals joy, I should say, is probably a better way, is the less time I spend scrolling on my phone, the better. Pretty cut and dry for most people. Just, it's not good. And for me, I'm not a big social media junkie. The only social media I have on my phone is YouTube. And the biggest culprit is YouTube Shorts. I have actually tried hard, and if you know of a way, please tell me, to completely disable YouTube Shorts. I was much more of a fan of YouTube when it was just videos. Now YouTube Shorts are there, and I've heard, you can do if you just constantly click the three dots and say not interested, you get less shorts pushed on you, which is great, but it's still always in the bottom tab. I would love to like load an older version of YouTube that doesn't have it. And that's also an admission of self-control. Like, it's just tempting and it's easy to click. I miss when it was just videos. And so, yeah, if I spend less time on YouTube Shorts specifically, it's kind of my big vice. Instagram used to be one. I took it off my phone. I use YouTube for work stuff though too. Obviously doing this video, but also like listening to lectures and doing stuff like that. So it's a hard one to just say we're taking it off the phone. Although I could do desktop version on the phone. Whenever I use Facebook on my phone, I just go to facebook.com. I don't do the app. So that's one way to do it as well. So, but for me, spending less time specifically on YouTube Shorts is helpful. Another thing for me is not being on my phone before bed brings me a lot of joy because my sleep is better. Sleep is a big issue for me. If you've known me throughout my life, very difficult. 2024 for sure, and a lot of 2025, I had it was really rough years for my sleep. I've been on and off for that being difficult for a long time, but like multiple nights of getting to bed at 3 a.m. when I was trying to get to bed at 10 kind of stuff. I don't know if you'd call it insomnia for me. I mean, usually once I'm asleep, I stay asleep for the most part. It's just getting to sleep, and I put together a better wind down routine that for me is mostly optimized when my last meal is 3 hours before bed, like eating anything 3 hours before bed, having some kind of herbal tea before bed, doing something calming, whether that's stretching, sometimes a hot shower, reading, journaling. And for me, people say this a lot, but reading something that's not going to activate my mind. A lot of people are like, well, you should read fiction. I think it's more subjective. For me, the series that I'm locked into now is Dungeon Crawler Carl. That sucked me in crazier than I expected to. So I'll be doing that for quite a few weeks in the evening as I wind down, and then I'd like to start The Way of Kings, the Stormlight Archive, and those 5 books I'm sure will take me a while. Uh, but something that's just enjoyable, that's not getting you thinking too much. And so for me, I'm a very creative person and I like actually writing and storytelling. So certain fiction books can actually wake my mind up. So, but there are certain nonfiction books that are about topics that I find interesting, but they're not going to get me thinking. So philosophy before bed, no. Religious studies before bed, no. History before bed, that's fine as long as it doesn't like excite me, just interesting. So super niche history, like I have what is the book at home that I haven't started yet, Lion of the Valley, just about a certain period of St. Louis's history. Seemingly boring, but it's just interesting, but it's not going to get me thinking that much. Those types of books I can fall asleep to pretty easy. So wind down for bed helps. And then I spent a lot of time this year getting supplementation and diet more in check, and that's a big joy push for me. Now we know this abundantly. If you're struggling with mental health issues, one of the biggest things you can do is get your diet in check. Big one. For a lot of people, it's getting rid of sugar, getting rid of processed foods. Those are big main ones. I could start to kind of give some others, but those are main ones. Definitely no alcohol anywhere near bedtime. But in general, if you're struggling with mental health, it's best to just get off alcohol altogether. Stop smoking of any kind. I'm pretty on board with the no more than 2 drinks a week track that it seems to be being recommended by a lot of the scientific field. Definitely feel better for it. But yeah, getting your diet in check is a big deal, and people have different DNA and biomarkers and genetics. So if you have the money and can do a scan of that in any capacity, go for it. I think it can be really helpful. You can also do trial and error. If you can get in the habit of cooking at home and being consistent with meal planning, then you can start to pay attention to, are there certain meals that make you feel moody? Just pay attention to that. So if you're struggling with any mental health issues, any at all, anything, reassess diet for sure, and cut out all substances. I know people are like, that's dramatic, but you also have to understand there's a lot of people out there that don't struggle with mental health. It's one of those issues that only the people with problems talk about it. If you don't have any issues there, you don't bring it up. So people might be like, oh, well, it seems like everyone's knees and backs hurt. It's like, well, people who don't have knee and back pain don't bring up their knees and their back. It's a weird conversation point if it doesn't hurt. Same with people with mental health. People don't talk about their mental health usually if it's not a problem. It's not like a home where people are like, it's not a joyful thing that people talk about. They just talk about it when it's negative. So there are lots of people out there don't have anxiety, don't have depression. They're not dealing with any, and we're talking mental health illness and issues. So it doesn't mean they're not having tough times or difficult situations. They're just not having negative mental, psychological effects that would be clinically significant and require therapy. Phase of life does not fully count for that. So yeah, I say all that because for me, diet and nutrition, sleep, these make me happier. I love exercising and working out. Makes me happier for sure. It's not something I noticed this past year because I haven't made much adjustments to that in the last 2 years. It's been really good. So that's an ongoing thing. It's not something I did in 2025 to make me happier, more joyful. Another thing, let's see, has anything else stolen joy from me? Here's a cool thing that I realized this year is 2025, and this might have been true the previous year, I don't know, but I noticed it in 2025, is I no longer have any relationships that I'd rather not have. That's amazing. So there's no relationship that I have that's just stealing from my life. None. I have some that are more difficult, some that require more of me, some that have challenges in them, but there's not a single person I can think of, family or friend, even people who have authority and control over me. So my landlord here, my landlord at my apartment, stuff like that. No one that I'm like, oh, I wish they were out of the picture, you know. So even things that like I can't fully control, quote unquote, because I can move. Yeah, I've just set myself up finally with no one that's a problem. And that's come from two ways. One, spending years trying to be the type of person that doesn't create and cause problems. So doing my part to create peace has been a big deal. The second part is getting much better at managing problems. So when an issue comes up, resolving it in a way that the relationship ends better than it was before the problem. That's been a really important skill to continue building. And the third is situations where the change isn't going to happen, just cutting the relationship off with an open door. I'm actually not a fan of the trend right now of cutting off relationships. It's very nuanced. I think it is healthy, but I feel like people are, especially with parents and family and stuff like that, like people are very dismissive currently, this current generation of mental health activism. That's a whole nother video, so I just want to caveat that cutoff can be good and it can be bad. So for me, that line is I've attempted everything I can to make the relationship healthy, and even within the cutoff, I try to create a space of there's an invitation still for the relationship to work. If there's safety issues, I don't keep that bridge around, but assuming it's not a safety issue, it's more maybe a maturity issue or a disrespect issue, we put the line up. I've gotten better at communicating all of that. And you still offend people. That just is going to happen. But so that's been cool. I'm really proud of that. I'm 30, and that's I don't have to deal with that anymore. So, and I, might in the future life happens, but that's been cool. So in terms of what I can control, I've gotten that figured out in my life. That's nice. That's a big one, actually. Another thing that's made me happier is when you know that something needs done, doing it. It's such an obvious thing, and I really struggle with this. Actually, I'm a textbook procrastinator and putting stuff off person. I default that way a lot. So I'm definitely not sitting on a high horse with this advice. But for me, yeah, when something needs done, what you'll see online a lot, and I like this framing, is closing the loop. I love it, and I think it sounds cool. But if you've started a cycle, close it. So what that means is, if you're like, I'm going to reorganize my bookshelf, and you get halfway through it and go to something else, that is now mentally, that's an open loop in your head. It's not done. So do what you can to finish it, and only stop if something more important demands your attention. Stop. But other than that, close it out, which also means you need to get better at deciding when you should start to open a loop in the first place. So that's an issue some people have, is they maybe power through closing loops, but their actual issue is they need to stop opening them. So for me, and I say that to everyone, myself, that's a two-sided skill. One is deciding what you're going to start. Count the cost of what you start. Consider what it's going to take. And you're going to be wrong all the time, but try to guess what that's going to look like, and always overestimate. It's better to have leftover time that you didn't think you'd have than for something to require more of you than you thought it would. And that's true for finances too. Always assume you're going to spend more. Always assume it's going to take more time. Always assume it's going to be harder. Whatever your default is, just add to it. So that way, like I said, you'd rather be surprised at it not requiring as much than be harmed by it needing more. So overestimate. And the other end is working on following through. Me recording this video right now, it's important that right when I finish, I get the thumbnail, thumbnail made, title it, get the description in, post it. Don't leave it unfinished unless I just cannot finish it right now, which I for sure can. So we're doing that. It's important. So that has been very helpful for me. And that includes, man, I got a couple things that I was talking with family recently that we're chatting about, like, what have we been meaning to do that we haven't done. And I had a list of about 4 things, kind of. One I'm actively doing, so I didn't count, but like 3 things. And I'm like, I want to get this done this year. And that's part of that, is finish the things that you say you're going to finish, or create really good closure around why you're not going to finish it. But don't just say maybe someday. This isn't a resolutions video, but that would be probably one of mine, is get much more of the phrase eventually or someday or it's a dream of mine to get that out. Let that be something that you're like, oh, that means I still want to do it. So let me assess it. Is it realistic? Do I really want to do it? And if the answer is yes, start getting it done. And even if it's planning, but make steps towards it constantly, versus just sitting there and being like, I hope so. Or decide you don't want it and get rid of it. That's as true as like retirement. Like someone's like, I want to buy a home, and can start saving. Do a little bit more than what you're already doing. And if you're like, I can't save, it's like, figure out what can you work an extra hour, like anything. Again, separate topic, but for me, just putting the next step forward on things that I have good intentions to do but just haven't. Make progress. Even if it's a grab bag of things I've been meaning to do, it's like, well, grab one and start working on it. Even if that first one takes you 2 years, out of 20 things you have, start chipping away. I'm happier when I do that, more joyful. I'm more joyful when I have dedicated time for my wife and my family and my friends. I am more joyful when I can decompress doing things I like. As someone who, I'm not a huge user of introvert and extrovert, but for simplicity, as someone who's more introverted, that's been a difficult thing for me, is as I get more relationally minded and spend more time with people I care about, trying to prioritize time for me is an interesting balance of, I do need some decompression time. How do I do that? So that's been important for me, is what does it really mean for me to reconnect and rest? And that's gotten better. And for me, it actually means resting, like sleeping more and taking naps is important. It's more important than the 1 hour that I think would be nice playing a video game. It's probably sometimes better to take an hour nap instead. And that's case by case. And then just taking more time for family. I think this year I spent more time with family than I have in the past. And I keep trying to do more of that. Just relationships, they are important. So yeah, I could maybe keep chatting. Yeah, this is good. I think it's just good to reflect on what has made me happier and what has taken away happiness and joy. Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff. I'll probably rewatch this later as a reminder for myself. If I'm like, what should I be doing? Or I'm feeling down, watch the video and do more or less of the things you mentioned. I would love for anyone who's made it this far to just share what you did in 2025 that made you more joyful, more happy, and things that you did that stole from that. I would love to hear other people's experience or to have a conversation with you about things. I like the engagement when it's there. So yeah, tell me. I'm curious. Other than that, happy Monday. Happy entrance into 2026. And I don't know what this year has on this channel for me. I put out a video last year of books I wanted to get to, and I'll own that I bombed that. So I'd like to work on some of that as well. And reading more is high on my list this year, on top of what I already do. So yeah. Anyway, give me your thoughts in the bottom. And I will look forward to seeing everyone next Monday. See ya.